Hello people of the internet, this is Kaiju Noir, here to share with you my thoughts on The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, the first of a three-part adaptation of the novel by J.R.R. Tolkien. Now to be honest with you guys, I have never read the critically acclaimed Lord of the Rings trilogy or The Hobbit. However, I did watch and loved the film adaptations of the trilogy, and like them, I went into this movie with no previous knowledge of the story beyond its premise. I'd also like to point out that my local theater presented the film in the traditional 24 frames per second format as opposed to the 48 frames per second format that was invented for this movie. While I cannot give an exact opinion on this new 24 FPS technology, I can say that I was mostly relieved that I avoided it. Since the late 1920s, 24 FPS was Hollywood's standard for theatrically released films, since it gave them that unique look that separated them from television programs. From what I've seen on HD TVs that have a 48 FPS option, it makes movies look like they are set on fast forward, which always looked very unsettling to me. It makes the movie feel a bit cheaper, like a low-budget telenovela, which by now every critic has compared the 48 FPS version of The Hobbit to, so it looks like I haven't missed much. With that out of the way, let's get into the actual review, shall we? The Hobbit's story takes place 60 years before the events of The Lord of the Rings. In the film, a young hobbit named Bilbo Baggins, played by Martin Freeman, joins a wizard named Gandalf the Grey, once again played by Ian McKellen, and 12 dwarves to go on a quest to the Lonely Mountain. They must travel there to kill Smaug, a dragon who had previously kicked out all of the dwarves from their land due to his obsession with their treasure. The story is certainly not as complex as The Lord of the Rings. However, that certainly doesn't stop it from being a grand experience. I like how they never show Smaug's full body, indicating his large presence in this tale. All of the characters were really great and fun to watch. I loved seeing Bilbo's transformation from a timid hobbit who wanted nothing more than to live a safe and uneventful life into a courageous adventurer who's willing to fight for others. Out of the 12 dwarves, Thorin is the only one who goes through a character arc since he is the leader and king of the dwarves, and feels guilty for letting Smaug steal his race's land. When it comes to the other dwarves, most likely only 4 or 5 of them will really stand out to you. Hopefully, we'll see each of them have their own time to shine in the latter 2 installments. Gandalf is awesome as always. He knows when to be serious and be a complete badass, and when to be fun-loving and have a good time. The real show stealer, once again, is Gollum, played masterfully by Andy Serkis, who provided the voice, motion capture, and facial movements just like in The Lord of the Rings. His scenes with Bilbo alone is worth the price of admission and will certainly be the highlight of the experience. With such a simple story, I was surprised that director Peter Jackson and company decided to stretch this out to 3 movies. Even more surprising was that this movie's running time was 2 hours and 45 minutes. For the first installment, they presented us with Azog, a pale orc who is after Thorin for severing his arm during the war between orcs and dwarves. Azog becomes the main antagonist for this first installment, as he follows Thorin's group for revenge. He's a rather cool villain, but isn't that complex when compared to the villains from the previous movies. Also, I don't know why he and his army were created in CGI, when in previous movies the orcs were played by actual people in makeup. Another thing that was added in order to extend the running time were references to The Lord of the Rings, using the characters from those films who were played by returning actors. In the beginning, we see an older Bilbo conversing with his nephew Frodo before writing down his adventures. Near the second half, we see Gandalf with the White Council talking about the possibility of the evil Sauron returning from the dead. Not only do these callbacks successfully tie the story in to the previous films, but seeing actors such as Christopher Lee, Elijah Wood, and Hugo Weaving come back to perform these roles was a very nice surprise. From a technical standpoint, this movie is a masterpiece. Everything from the on-location scenery to the makeup and costumes to the CGI look astonishing. Even the effects that were used to make the dwarves and Hobbit appear shorter than everyone else is still an impressive feat. The filmmakers used many special effects techniques to help tell the story rather than to make up for it, which really sets this movie apart from the kind of movies that are nothing but special effects with barely any plot. It's also worth mentioning that the film's musical score has been one of the most memorable this year alongside the score for The Dark Knight Rises. It pains me to see so many movies have really forgettable and uninspired scores, the kind of scores that you can't hum to when you're walking down the street like you can with a John Williams piece. The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey is more than just a movie, it's an experience. With great characters, jaw-dropping set pieces, amazing special effects, beautiful scenery, and a memorable score, there's no doubt in my mind that this movie deserves a 5 out of 5. Now we can only wait and see if the desolation of Smog and There and Back Again can follow up on this outstanding introduction. Now we come to the part where I'd like to share my thoughts on my favorite trailer that was shown before the movie, the trailer for Pacific Rim, which I had previously seen on YouTube. When I first gazed upon this trailer, my immediate reaction was the following. Oh my god! Which was soon followed by this. Yes! Yes! Very few trailers have made me this excited. I mean, a movie directed by Guillermo del Toro that's about human-piloted giant robots fighting giant monsters? What's not to love if you're a Godzilla fan like me? While we don't get a full look at the monsters, we do get a good look at the robots, or Jaegers as they are called. I really like their simple and streamlined designs, and it seems like these Jaegers each have a unique and individual look. To top it off, they even got Ellen McLain, who provided the voice of GLaDOS from the Portal video games, to provide the voice for the Jaeger's AI. Amazing visuals aside, I sincerely hope that the story and characters are just as good, so that this movie doesn't end up being another Transformers. I also notice how there are many who are comparing this movie to Neon Genesis Evangelion. I have never seen the series and am unfamiliar with the franchise. If any of you have seen the anime, let me know how the series is, maybe I'll give it a watch. To me though, Pacific Rim sorta looks like a loose PG-13 adaptation of Power Rangers. Hollywood has recently taken children's properties such as the Avengers, Transformers, Batman, and G.I. Joe, and adapt them into movies aimed at an older audience, namely the audience who grew up with these properties. After seeing the Avengers, I started thinking that the same can be applied to Power Rangers, which happens to be one of my favorite shows from my childhood. If Pacific Rim does become a success, this can hopefully lead to just that. We'll just have to wait and see. So until next time everybody, take care. Go, go.